When did you realize that your marriage was over? I only wanted to go to couples counseling so the therapist could tell me it's okay to leave you. When I was driving home from work and thought if that Mack truck T-boned me, I won't have to go home today. It was totally out of the blue and very uncharacteristic for me to think anything like that. I gave myself my own wake-up call. That I would rather be killed end up in the hospital than go home to my now ex. When he told me that he had a secret daughter who was 3 years old. He'd been together for 13 years. When every day I thought of smashing into a bridge or a truck just to die. And I started going to work and just read books just so I didn't have to be at home. When I came home from work to find my house trashed and empty of almost everything except my clothes. Followed by being thrown out of her work by the police when I showed up to ask where my child was. And finally the emails I found where she was cheating on me for months. All this was on the same evening. When my 3-year-old daughter said mommy doesn't love you anymore, and I knew it was true. To be fair, kids are horrible. My ex-wife and I barely had sex in the last few years. She always made it seem like a chore. One day, she went out to get her nails done. It took 5 hours. I asked her what she was doing and she said she only got her nails done. I asked what took so long and she avoided the question. The next week, she had an STD. Whoa. I didn't know you could get an STD from Imani. I should be more careful. When I couldn't make her laugh anymore. When I told her I had gotten a job in a new town and she laughed and said thank God. I'm not going. Accepting a job in a new town without telling her might have been a clue too. Well, it all started when she started getting really serious about going to church. She and I were both Mormon when we married, but I left the church about 4 years into the marriage. So every week she was listening to people tell her that she wasn't going to heaven unless I rejoined the church or that she married another member. So months of passive aggressiveness from her and fights over nothing. One day my 4-year-old son just walked up to me and said, "Daddy, you're not happy anymore." Then I knew. I sat down with my wife and told her that I wasn't going to rejoin the church, and if that was going to be a problem going forward we should both just take a break and think about it. I moved back to my parents and I let her keep the house, car and most of the stuff we had accumulated over the years. About a month after that she said that she felt much better without a sinner in the house, and so that was that. Started off with both Mormon, ended up with discovered that I have a huge dick. When? About 9 years before we got divorced. Good times. Good times. When standing in the courtroom and the judge asked my then wife where she was living, to which she replied with my fiance. I was willing to try after I found out about the drugs. And I was willing to try after I found out about the first affair. I was trying after I found the video she made of herself masturbating that she sent to some other guy. And I was starting to try again after I found out about the other affairs. The best case for kids is to have 2 parents together who love each other. I didn't stop trying until she told me that she wasn't going to try. That's how I knew it was over. No matter what I would do. It didn't matter if she wouldn't work on it too. A shitty mother is probably worse than no mother. When she said I feel nothing about anything, turns out she was banging her ex from 12 years ago that used to beat her up. When I found out my husband of a year had been in a long distance relationship with a guy for the last 5 years. At least it didn't take that long. When my now ex-husband told me that our son was a financial burden in response to "Can you try to come home early this Saturday and go to the park with us?" When I found that most of the sandwich cold cuts I had bought the day before were almost gone and my wife wasn't a sandwich eater. I'm guessing she preferred sausage. When I had done everything he asked of me and he was still giving nothing to the relationship. I knew I had tried. I knew he wasn't going to try. So I left. When I woke up at 6 AM and realized he didn't come home from the previous night, I was worried and called his cell. It rang 4 times and then went to voicemail. I called again and it went directly to voicemail. He came home around 11 AM and I asked him who he was fing. He said he stayed with a friend, but not one that I had met during our 3-5 year relationship. I asked him again who he was fing. He finally fessed up. When my ex-wife cheated on me for the 4th time and then filed RP charges on the man she cheated with. Then I read the police report and packed my bags. 10 years of crazy and now she's on to her next victim. I have never been happier being single in my life. When my then husband beat the crap out of me. We'd been having problems for some time. Even tried couples therapy. He'd been refusing to acknowledge my concerns. Both in and out of therapy. I'd say something. And his response would be, "You don't mean that. You mean this." I got tired of talking to him. It was pointless. In my mind. And basically shut down. One evening he lost his temper. I don't remember what set him off. And I got used as a punching bag. I'm 130 pounds to his almost 300 pounds. I left and never went back to him. He also blamed me for him losing his temper. I pushed him to his limit. FCK, that is so infuriating. Maybe if you hadn't acted the way you did, I would have never lost my temper. Apparently self-control is lost on these idiots. I'm sorry for what you had to go through. At his funeral. Not a marriage. But I knew my relationship with my ex was over when she called me at work and said if I didn't come home right now she would tell the police I was a pedophile. I stuck around for a month after that. Because I was terrified she'd go through with her threat if I didn't do exactly what she said. And no. I'm not a pedophile. But even the accusation would have ruined my life and career and she could have planted evidence on my computer as easily as she could take pictures of her kid in the bathtub. Close bracket. One which then went on to get ruined on their own. Till I don't want to get married. I've been married 10 years. We have 3 kids. She's my best friend. Never marry someone you wouldn't be friends with. It wasn't when she told me that. In order for her to be happy, I had to stop playing video games and give up all my friends so I could spend every night home with her. It wasn't when her movie night with my best friend started extending past midnight. It wasn't when she came home at 2 AM one night and told me that he kissed her. It was a moment later. When I said, well, I guess you won't be seeing him anymore, and she said, why not? I realized my marriage was over when my husband and I were fighting so much that he didn't send the marriage certificate in for 2 months. We were in different states, literally and figuratively. In hindsight. And he would hold it above my head. I then found out that he was cheating on me the whole time. Long story short. I'm still married to him and unable to process a divorce because he's living life in the military and I'm unable to serve him. Oh, hold on there. You get in touch with his command and that shit gets taken care of fast. You can claim abandonment. My brother said he knew he made a huge mistake when his wife, who wanted to save herself for marriage, pretended to be on her period on their wedding night. For some reason he stuck around for 20 more near-essless years and a great heaping of mental abuse too. When she got her green card, he swerved to hit a squirrel. Just her boyfriend though. Special spot in hell for people like that. When I realized he would rather spend hours leveling his paladin as opposed to spending any time with me. Game over. When she put the gun to my head, pulled the hammer back, looked into my eyes and pulled the trigger, I knew the gun was unloaded. She did not. Well, I guess you dodged a bullet there. I got assaulted. Had to call the cops. After I thought I was done talking to them, I went back to my office and sat there crying. My boyfriend came in at that point, drunk, and started yelling at me, blaming me. One of the cops came back to ask me one more question. Saw the way my BF was treating me, and bounced him from the building. He gave me his card, and wrote his personal cell and home numbers on them. I told him my BF never hit me. The cop looked at me and just said that he had seen this before. One day he would. And one day I was going to need his numbers. The second he was sober enough to not be scary anymore, I kicked him out. Edit. Just want to say I got assaulted randomly on the street by a crazy person. TL. DR. Kicked boyfriend out when cop gave me personal numbers, saying that even though he wasn't beating me yet, he would start soon. That was an awesome cop. My wife promised to kill me rather than ever divorce me because she loves me too much to let me suffer the pains of divorce. Having seen everybody in my family and most of my friends go through painful divorces, I approve and support my wife's promise. So far, this works well for us. We've been married over 36 years. When his girlfriend introduced herself to me at the bar. Huh? You don't recognize me, do you? Me. No. Should I? Huh? I'm 22-year-old Skanksel T. I'm worthless PC ex-husband's girlfriend. Me. That's interesting. I'm worthless PC ex-husband's wife. Huh? You threw him out. Me. Not yet. I sure as shit will tonight. 3-year relationship. He was in a drug abuse program. No job. No car and living at his parents'. He ended up leaving his Facebook open where he had messaged a girl he FK'd the previous night. I just didn't pick him up from the program. Best decision I ever made. He threatened me and my current boyfriend for months after that. Said he was going to kill himself. One crazy guy. Finally got my number changed and moved from the area. I called home at lunch. Me. Hey hun. Friend and I are going up to the city to see mutual terminally ill friend after work. I'll be home after 8. Huh? Dot. Big sigh. Do you have to? Me. Fassapum yeah. I do. When she found someone else and left me 2 years later. My wife went out of town at the time of my best friend's wedding. I was in the wedding of course and was staying at the hotel holding the reception. Drinks were poured. Laughs were had. And I spent time with my best friend. Late into the night I took a deep breath and realized that I had come back to a personality I hadn't lived since I had gotten married. I knew I hadn't been me. And not only was my wife perfectly happy with that, but she had done plenty to keep things that way. While she was away I ended up in the hospital with heart symptoms dealing with the guilt knowing that I had to end it. When I got home from the hospital and got on Skype to chat with her the first comment she made was about how much it cost to get a heart scan. And not until I got upset did it even occur to her that she was not in the least concerned for me. I brought her home from the airport and ended up knocking on my mom's door that night. The afternoon I came home early from a business trip and found my wife being tag teamed by the 17-year-old twins from next door. I think that was pretty much the moment I realized this was not marriage for me. I think it was later on when I was sitting in jail pending assault charges that were thrown out for temporary insanity that it really hit home. My wife probably nailed every guy I know. Kind of made me happy I was sitting in jail for punching a 17-year-old and not for murder. When she crawled into bed an hour after me, sat silently for 30 minutes, then started crying and said, "Are we supposed to be doing this?" A week later we were separated. Couple months after that we signed the paperwork and parted ways. Alternatively, maybe a couple of months before that when she didn't want to go out for New Year's Eve and then instead fell asleep on the couch at 10 and didn't want to be woken. Spent most of that night on the porch by myself drinking wine from the bottle and listening to the party next door and just generally being miserable that I was spending my life doing whatever somebody else wanted to do. Oh. And a different girl, not married though. Not making that mistake twice. When I became aware that she'd FK'd 3 guys in the last 3 consecutive days without so much as showering in between. Only one of which was me. It's hard to pinpoint that exact moment. But I suppose it was when I realized he was a manipulative, condescending, selfish sad sack of a human being and he was never going to grow out of it. That I can do and deserve better. And that I'd be okay if I ended up alone. Thank you couples counseling for waking me up. Today is my 1 week anniversary for being divorced. Also, I've met an amazing man equals. This is the best year of my life. My sister broke up with her boyfriend when she found out he was the type of guy to ride a lane he knew to be closing all the way to the end, passing the people reasonable enough to get over as soon as possible. 25 years married with kids and happier than ever. That's when you realized it was over? I am single and just fap and play video games all day long. Feels good, man. Not a wife. Just a relationship. I knew it was over when she said the only good thing about Obama winning is that abortion is legal. So we can still abort red RDS. So, you were dating in Colter?